Hello, Professor Shadow here. Just a quick message before we watch The Wolfman Awakens. I've been wanting to write this story for many years. As a young boy, I had a thing called a Super 8mm projector, and on there was this big reel, and it had about 4 or 5 short little cuts of movies, and one of them was called The Wolfman's Cure, and it was where this Lon Chaney Jr. jumped down into this cliff, over the cliff face, and as a young boy I always imagined, what if he never came out? What if he was stuck in there? What if there was something in there that never resurfaced? Let's enjoy The Wolfman Awakens.
I come here day after day and look into the sea. I know the moon is coming. She stopped me once. I must end it before it consumes me totally. You know, I made it here without her. She doesn't know I've come. She does not know what I have done.
The Wolfman Awakens, Part 1, Chapter 1. The Gathering at Blackthorn Manor, year 2025. The sea is rough, crashing against jagged cliffs along the East Yorkshire coast. Mist rolls in from the water and gulls circle above the battered shoreline. Perched high above, brooding against the storm, stands Blackthorn Manor, a sprawling estate of grey stone and ivy, its windows glowing faintly in the dim light. 2 figures arrive by car along the winding drive. Edward Ashbury, 20, and his cousin, Clara Ashbury, 19. Both members of the old Ashbury line have been summoned. Their parents spoke of the manor only rarely, as if it carried a weight too heavy for casual mention.
This is a family secret, something you must never speak of.
For Edward and Clara, this is their first true visit to the ancestral seat. They step out, gazing up at the vast building. The grounds stretch wide, carefully kept gardens near the house, but further out, untamed stretches of wild grass push toward the cliff edge. The roar of the sea carries up from below. On the gravel path, they meet Mr. Sallow, the estate's gardener. He is wiry, stooped, his hands blackened with soil, his face weathered like old wood. His eyes dart nervously as he regards them. Mr. Sallow, quietly.
Beware the manor. It holds secrets best left buried.
Before either cousin can press him further, he shuffles off, muttering under his breath, disappearing among the hedgerows. Inside, the cousins are led into a great hall, hung with portraits of ancestors, their painted eyes following every step. At the head of a long oak table sits Lady Margaret Ashbury, the family matriarch. Tall, stern, her hair silver and bound tightly back. She rises slowly, her cane clicking against the floor. Lady Margaret, you wonder why you have been called here? The Ashbury line has suffered a loss. Your uncle has passed. With his death comes the reading of the will and the settling of matters that will affect you both. But this house, this land, it is not like others. It carries history. It carries shadows. Clara leans closer to Edward, whispering uneasily. Clara, I keep hearing about a curse. What does it mean? Lady Margaret fixes them both with a piercing stare.
Do not awaken the curse.
Firmly, do not awaken the curse. Whatever you may hear, whatever you may see, you must not disturb what sleeps beneath this manor. The storm outside rattles the tall windows. The fire pops loudly in the hearth. For a moment, it seems the whole house is listening. The cousins exchange a glance, in equal parts intrigue and dread. Chapter 2. The Legend of the Cliff. The morning mist clung low across the grounds of Blackthorn Manor. Edward and Clara walked side by side along the gravel paths, their breath clouding in the cool sea air. Behind them, the manor loomed, its windows watching like silent eyes.
What do you think Lady Margaret meant by the curse?
Do you think we're going to inherit anything? Or are we just here for ghost stories?
Edward gave a small shrug, though his eyes stayed sharp. I don't know, but the way she said it, it was more warning than tale. They turned a corner, and once again found themselves facing Mr. Sallow, the gardener. He was bent low over the soil, his wiry frame shaking as though even the earth resisted him.
Mr. Sallow, do you know anything about this curse?
The old man straightened slowly, his eyes darting, his face worn like weathered stone. He leaned on his spade, voice low and gravelly.
There's a legend. An old family member, long ago.
He threw himself from the cliffs, just there beyond the grounds. Some say he was mad, others tormented, cursed. Clara stepped closer, brow furrowed. Mr. Sallow. It was 200 years ago. They say he ravaged the village, killed without reason. When the curse overtook him, he could not control himself. The story goes, he hurled himself into the sea to end it, so that he would never harm again. If he had not, the beast would have consumed him completely. He would have been lost forever. No man, no soul, only the curse. Edward and Clara exchanged a glance, unease settling over them. Clara, whispering, consumed completely. The two cousins continued on, leaving the gardener behind. They came to the cliff's edge, where the sea raged and crashed far below. The wind pulled at their coats, carrying the salt spray to their faces.
Look at it, so many caves, carved out by the waves.
Smugglers used them once, even pirates. You can see the entrances when the water pulls back. Hidden places, forgotten places, but the waves are too fierce for a boat to reach them. Clara peered over the edge, her stomach tightening. The cliffs were jagged, eroding, fragile, and impossible to climb down. One wrong step, and the whole face could collapse. Edward's expression hardened with determination. Edward, not for me. I've trained for this. I've climbed worse. If there's something down there, I can reach it. Clara turned on him, eyes wide. Clara, firm, almost laughing. Edward, it's just a legend. Nothing could live for 200 years. He's gone. Whatever happened, it's long buried. The sea roared beneath them, a hollow echo that seemed to rise up through the cliffs themselves. The cousins stood silent for a moment, gazing into the misty abyss, the air heavy with secrets, the waves below whispering of things not yet dead. Chapter 3. The dinner at Blackthorn Manor. The long dining hall of Blackthorn Manor was lit with candlelight and fire, shadows trembling across portraits that lined the walls. Edward and Clara sat together at the far side of the oak table, their plates before them untouched. Around them, 6 others filled the chairs. Lady Margaret Ashbury presided at the head, her silver hair gleaming in the firelight, cane propped against the table. Beside her sat the maid, Agnes, young, pale, her eyes downcast, moving only when serving wine. Across from Edward and Clara were 4 other family members. distant cousins or relatives, each cloaked in a quiet strangeness. One, Mr. Haldred, was broad-shouldered, his beard thick and black, his eyes flickering like a man half in shadow. Another, Miss Evelyn, sat stiff and elegant, her smile cold, her gaze lingering on Clara too long. Beside her, Dr. Rowan, thin and severe, adjusted his gloves nervously, speaking rarely, but watching everyone with a hawk's eye. Last was Jonas Ashbury, younger than the others, but with a sly grin, his fingers tapping idly on the wood as if restless. The meal was served, but the air was thick with anticipation, not appetite. Lady Margaret, sternly. "You all know why we are gathered here. Your uncle's passing has left a void in this house. His will has not yet been opened, but one of you will inherit. One of you will be chosen to carry the Ashbury mantle." Edward shifted uneasily, whispering low to Clara. Edward.
They make it sound like a throne, not an inheritance.
Clara, whispering back. "Or a burden." Across the table, Evelyn tilted her head, her voice silk over steel. Miss Evelyn. "It is more than wealth, Edward. It is an honour, a duty, to carry what runs in our blood." Her eyes lingered on Clara again, almost hungrily, before she sipped her wine. Mr. Haldred gave a deep chuckle, but it was humourless. Mr. Haldred. Not all have the strength for it. Some would falter. A silence followed, broken only by the faint pop of the fire. Clara tightened her grip on her fork. She felt watched by the family, by the portraits, by the house itself. Lady Margaret's cane struck the floor, echoing like a gavel. Lady Margaret. "Enough. The will shall be read tomorrow. Tonight you remember who you are. Ashburys. This house does not forget." The storm rattled the tall windows, wind whistling through the cracks like a distant howl. For a moment, Clara thought she saw Jonas's reflection in the glass distort, his smile lengthening, teeth sharper than they should be. But when she blinked, it was gone. The meal carried on, but the unease hung heavier than the smoke in the hall. Chapter 4. Shadows of the Pack. Edward and Clara stood together in one of the manor's long corridors, their voices hushed, echoing faintly against the panelled walls. The candles, set in iron sconces, sputtered in the draught. Clara, quietly.
Edward, they all speak of the curse as though it's
Alive in this house.
Did you see the way Evelyn looked at me?
Like she knew something. Edward shook his head, though unease lingered in his eyes. Edward, they're hiding something, Clara. Something older than money or inheritance. A slow clap echoed behind them. They turned to see Jonas Ashbury, stepping out of the shadows. His grin was sharp, his dark eyes gleaming with mischief, or menace.
You're both too curious for your own good.
Clara stiffened. Clara. Then tell us, what is this curse? What really happened to the one who threw himself from the cliffs? Jonas leaned lazily against the wall, his grin never fading. Jonas mocking.
The curse is not what you think it is. People whisper of madness, of torment, but I say he was a coward.
Not a martyr. Anyone with that sort of gift should never throw it away. Edward frowned. Edward. Gift. He killed people. He destroyed lives. Jonas's eyes flashed in the candlelight. Jonas, low, almost growling. He destroyed his greatest strength. How can you represent your family if you throw away what makes you more than a man? For a long moment, silence filled the corridor. Jonas straightened, his smile thinning, his tone almost offhand, yet weighted. Jonas.
I feel certain it will be me who inherits. Not just the wealth, the duty, the place among the pack.
The word lingered, strange and heavy. Clara's stomach turned, though she forced a smile, as if she hadn't heard the slip. Edward narrowed his eyes, studying Jonas, as though trying to decide whether he had meant it. Jonas bowed theatrically, his grin returning. Jonas light, teasing. Best to get some rest, cousins. Tomorrow's revelation may change everything. He disappeared back into the shadows, his footsteps fading into silence. Edward and Clara exchanged a look, part fear, part dawning realization. Clara whispering, "What did he mean? Pack?" The corridor fell still, save for the whisper of the storm outside. Chapter 5. The choice of the pack. The storm raged harder than ever, waves battering the cliffs. Edward tightened the straps of his climbing gear, determination in his eyes. Clara clutched his arm, her face pale.
Edward, no! This is madness! You don't know what's down there!
Edward, firm with resolve.
I'm an adept climber, Clara. Rock climbing's my life. If there's something hidden in
Those caves, I'm going to find out, one way or another. She shook her head, but his resolve was unshakable. With a final glance, he clipped onto the rope and began his descent down the jagged cliffside, the sea spray lashing against him. Clara remained at the top, her coat whipping in the wind, eyes fixed on her cousin as he disappeared into the mist. From the shadows of the manor's garden path, Jonas stepped forward, his smile sharp. Beside him came Lady Margaret, cane in hand, her silver hair catching the lightning. Lady Margaret, coldly, "It looks like fate has chosen for us." Jonas's grin widened. Jonas smirking, "Yes, fate has chosen the successor." The words struck Clara with unease she couldn't name. Jonas's eyes lingered on her, the hunger in them unmistakable. Inside the cave, Edward moved cautiously,
anybody there?
his lantern casting trembling light across the dripping walls.
Is anybody
The sound
there?
of his boots echoed in the damp silence. Edward, calling out.
Is anybody there?
Only his voice came back to him, distorted by the cavern. He pressed deeper, brushing past stalactites and loose stone. Then he stopped. Ahead of him lay a mound of earth, half collapsed, unnatural. Edward dropped to his knees and began clawing at it, his breath quickening, soil crumbling away under his hands. Inside the manor. Clara sat rigid in the great hall, Lady Margaret and Jonas standing before her, the storm rattling the windows like restless spirits. Clara, quiet, defiant.
What about Edward? If he has gone down there, he will never return. No one ever comes back from the caves.
Clara's throat tightened. Lady Margaret, leaning closer, her eyes hard. "You are part of our family, Clara. The bloodline must endure. We need a new mother for our pack, and you have been chosen." Jonas stepped forward, his smile cruel, triumphant. Jonas, "And I will be the father." His shadow stretched long across the wall as thunder boomed outside. Clara's face drained of color, the truth dawning like a nightmare.
You live. Are you alive?
So that's the end of part 1, The Wolfman Awakens. Part 2, coming very soon. I do hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget, if you want to find out more, delve deeper, don't forget I have a membership where you can jump in and see why I created these stories as I go in depth and behind the scenes on the reasons, the philosophy, the meaning behind many of my stories. Until next time, for part 2 of The Wolfman Awakens, Professor Shadow here, signing out. I'll see you real soon.
Kill them all.
He's free.
Wolfman Returns, Part 2. Chapter 1. The Legacy of the Pack. The storm had not relented. Its roar pressed against the tall windows of Blackthorn Manor, shaking the ancient glass, rattling the frames like the breath of something immense and unseen. Within the great hall, the fire in the hearth burned low, shadows pulling long across the portraits of grim ancestors. Clara sat rigid, her hands clenched in her lap, her heart beating as though it sought escape from her chest. Before her stood Lady Margaret Ashbury, silver hair bound tightly back, her cane set like a gavel of judgment upon the stone floor. Jonas lingered at her side, smiling as though he already knew the outcome of a game Clara had yet to understand. Lady Margaret's voice broke the silence, each word deliberate, edged with iron.
You must understand, child. What has been passed down is not measured in coin or titles.
The Ashby line does not endure through inheritance of land or gold, but through blood. Your uncle is gone. He was of the pack, and when one of us falls, another must rise to take their place. There must always be a sire. Clara's throat tightened. She had heard the word before, whispered in fragments, in shadows, but here it was unveiled like a curse etched into her fate. Clara, hoarse, whispering, "You mean Edward? That's why you called us here." Jonas chuckled darkly, stepping forward, his shadow long in the candlelight. "Jonas, Edward was one choice. You were the other. But Edward cast himself to the sea. He has chosen for us." Lady Margaret's gaze sharpened, her hand tightening on the cane. Her tone softened, but the words struck all the harder for it. Lady Margaret.
Do you know why the man they call the Wolfman threw himself from these cliffs?
His name was Alaric. Alaric Ashbury. He was my love. The name seemed to hang in the hall, heavy with sorrow. Clara's breath caught. Lady Margaret, continuing, "I stopped him once long ago when he sought to end the curse, not because I feared his death, but because he was to sire. He was to be the father of a new pack, yet he could not bear the burden. He called it torment, called it damnation, and in his cowardice, he leapt into the sea rather than continue our legacy." Her voice trembled, but with rage, not grief. "Lady Margaret, he went without me, left me to carry the duty alone, so I found another sire, another father for the pack, but now he too has gone to dust." She leaned closer, her eyes piercing Clara's. "Lady Margaret, firm. And so, it falls to you. The bloodline must endure. You will be the mother of the next pack, and Jonas will be the father." Jonas's smile grew sharper, triumphant, his eyes glinting with something feral. Clara felt the walls close in around her, the portraits watching, the storm outside thundering like a drumbeat of fate. Chapter 2. The Prisoner of Ashbury. The storm had not ceased its assault, hammering the walls of Blackthorn Manor as if to shake the truth loose from its stones. Clara paced the narrow chamber where she had been confined, her palms raw from battering the heavy oak door. At last, she turned to the tall, narrow window. It was set high in the wall, the glass thick, old, its iron fastenings rusted with age. Desperation lent her strength. She pulled at the latch, shoved her shoulder against the frame, even struck at it with the heel of her boot. The glass rattled but held, as though the house itself resisted her escape. The door creaked suddenly behind her. Clara whirled, breathless, to see Jonas stepping into the room, his dark silhouette, framed by the candlelight of the corridor. His smile was sharp, hungry. Jonas mocking calm.
I don't know why you're trying so hard. It is a privilege, Clara. A privilege to be an Ashbury.
And it will be a greater privilege still, to sire my children, our own pack. He stepped closer, voice dropping lower, more intimate, more sinister.
Think of it!
Think of what we're doing.
We will continue to breathe the line.
far beyond whatever Lady Margaret and Alaric could have dreamed. Without Alaric, the pack grew weak, but us, together, we will make it strong again. Clara's lip curled with disgust. She shook her head, pressing back against the window frame, as though to keep his words from touching her.
I would never sire your children!
You won't have a choice.
Clara lunged toward the window again, slamming her shoulder into it, trying desperately to shatter the pane. Jonas moved faster than her eyes could follow. His hand seized her arm, not with the strength of a man, but of something far greater. His grip was iron, unyielding. For the briefest moment, the candlelight shifted across his face. His grin widened too far, teeth lengthening unnaturally. The skin around his eyes darkened, his pupils burning gold. His hand, holding her arm, seemed to thicken, dark hairs sprouting at the wrist. Clara gasped, struggling in his hold, her horror deepening as she saw the wolf flicker through him.
No!
Not a full transformation, but a glimpse, a shadow of the beast within. Jonas leaned closer, his breath hot, his voice edged with the growl of something not entirely human. Jonas low, feral. You are Ashbury now, and the bloodline will endure.
No, Jonas, please, no!
You're mine, Clara.
The cave, Alaric awakened. The cave smelled of old salt and cold earth. In the guttering light of a small makeshift fire, Edward sat opposite the figure he'd dragged from the mound. A man, gaunt and ancient, his rags sodden with centuries of sea and soil. The man's hair was long and matted, his skin like parchment. Yet under the lantern's glow, Edward could see a pulse, the stubborn proof of life. The man coughed, drew a thin, rasping breath, and squinted up at Edward. Edward, voice shaking with exhaustion and disbelief. How are you still alive? You were buried. You couldn't have. The man's eyes found Edward's. For a second, they were only human, tired and sharp. Alaric, hoarse, bitter. The curse. It will not let me die. One who walks with the curse cannot die unless killed by another blessed by Lysana, blessed or cursed. That is the law of our blood. Only an Ashbury can end an Ashbury. Edward blinked. Ashbury, he whispered, remembering the portraits and Lady Margaret's cane. Alaric, nodding slowly. Aye, Ashbury. Names bind us. Blood binds us. Many years ago I climbed this cliff to end it. Margaret stopped me. She did not want me to end the line. She wanted me to continue it. I could not wear the weight. Edward's voice rose, incredulous. Lady Margaret of the Manor. Alaric's mouth twisted with a memory that was half love, half hunger. Alaric, she was my love. Once, I loved her so fiercely it hurt. But the life it demanded, the thirst, the nights, I could not bear it. I chose the sea thinking that would bury me. I hit the rocks, I drowned, and I woke beneath the dark. The ocean dragged me into this hollow, and the earth held me. Limbo, blackness, no life, no mercy. He pressed a cracked hand to his chest, as though still feeling the beat of an impossible heart. Alaric, bitter laugh. You should have left me. I was empty and gone. You woke me, boy, and now you have given me back this torment. When the moon comes again, mark my words, I will not revert. Once it takes me fully, I am the wolf without mercy. The moon will not give me man again. Edward swallowed. What can we do? The question came small, as if asking a god. Alaric met his gaze like a blade. Alaric, cold, certain.
The only way is to kill them all.
The little fire snapped. Outside, waves struck the cliff like the hammering of fate. Edward felt the words land in him like a stone. For a long moment, the cave was only the sound of breathing, the small red heart of the fire, and the far echo of the sea. Then Edward, numb and stunned, looked down at the ancient man before him, the man who had been both victim and monster, and understood that the war within the house had only just begun. Chapter 4. Rivalry in the Bloodline. The manor was hushed, its corridors echoing only with the storm outside. In the west wing, behind carved oak doors, a smaller chamber glowed with the light of a single fire. Jonas stood near the mantel, glass of wine in hand, his grin as sharp as the storm winds beyond. Evelyn entered, her dark gown whispering across the floor. Her eyes burned with contempt, though her tone was smooth, deliberate. Evelyn coldly,
It's unfair. I should have been the one chosen. Edward should have been mine.
there was a choice between Clara and Edward was clearly the stronger.
Somehow, you've cheated the game, Jonas.
It was inevitable. The stronger will succeed.
It should have been me and Edward at the head, not you and that girl. Jonas turned slowly, his smirk unfaltering. Jonas silken. It was inevitable, Evelyn. The stronger lineage will always succeed. Evelyn's voice sharpened like a blade. Evelyn.
Stronger lineage jumped off the cliff all those years ago.
Jonas's smile flickered, his eyes flashing with sudden heat. Jonas snapping.
Never say that. We are stronger without him.
Evelyn stepped closer, the firelight catching the steel in her gaze. Evelyn, measured, bitter. He was the first choice, the first curse. He would have changed this family, made it stronger than it ever could have been. Jonas set his glass down, leaning in, voice low with menace. Jonas, then why didn't you go down into the cave and find him? For a moment, silence held, broken only by the hiss of the fire. Evelyn's lips curled into a faint, a dangerous smile. Evelyn, calm, defiant.
Maybe I will.
The storm cracked lightning across the manor windows, and for a heartbeat, both their shadows seemed to stretch wolf-like against the walls. Chapter 5. The Consecration of the Ashburys. The silence of the manor broke with the sharp, violent bang of Lady Margaret's
Jonas!
cane against the flagstone floor. The sound rang like a hammer strike, commanding, summoning. Lady Margaret, shouting.
Jonas!
In the chamber, Jonas turned towards Evelyn, his grin taut, his eyes alive with excitement. Jonas low, urgent. Time to go. He swept from the room, his coat flaring in the firelight. Evelyn remained where she stood, watching him vanish through the door, her face stilled into something cold, calculating. She glanced to the storm-lashed windows, and in her eyes, a plan began to form. In the great hall, the fire roared, portraits staring down as though witness to the ritual. Lady Margaret stood at the head, cane planted firmly before her, her silver hair glowing in the blaze. Jonas knelt at her side, his head lowered in feigned humility. Around them, family gathered, cousins, relatives, faces half lit by fire and shadow. Lady Margaret, resonant, commanding.
It is time. Time to consecrate the family of Ashbury.
Jonas!
You will do your family proud. Your prize awaits in the room above. It is time for you to take it. The gathered kin bowed their heads. Then one by one the air thickened, bodies shuddering as if gripped by unseen force. A growl rose, low and collective, fingers twisted into claws, teeth lengthened, eyes burned yellow. Their forms warped and surged, human faces distorting into lupine snarls. Cloth tore, bones shifted. The great hall filled with the sound of beasts, where once had been kin. The Ashburys stood, revealed, the pack entire. Upstairs, Clara's room. Clara pressed against the window, her nails tearing at the frame. The glass rattled under her desperate fists, but the ancient panes would not break. Breathless, she turned, eyes wide with terror, her back against the wall. From beyond the door came the heavy tread of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, climbing the stairs. The floorboards creaked with each approach. Clara pressed her hand over her mouth to silence her breath, her whole body trembling. She knew now. The truth was bare. This was why she and Edward had been called. Not to inherit wealth, not to hear the will, but to continue the bloodline on the cliff top. Lightning lit the coast in a jagged flash. Evelyn stood at the edge of the cliff, her gown torn in the wind, her gaze locked on the dark sea below. Her expression was not fear, but strategy. She whispered to herself, voice nearly lost in the storm. Evelyn, coldly.
If they crown Jonas, the family will rot. Perhaps the pack needs another choice.
The waves crashed far below, the cave's mouth yawning in darkness. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. The storm howled. A plan had taken root. Chapter 6. No way up. The cave breathed cold and salt. Edward sat on a ledge, lantern light trembling against the dripping rock. Beside him, Ulrich, the man he had unearthed, gaunt and hollow-eyed, pressed his hands together as though feeling for the heat of a body he no longer trusted. Edward's voice cracked with urgency. Edward, we need to get you out of here. There's only one way to end the curse, and we can't do it with you rotting away in this hollow. You can't change fate stuck down here. We have to leave, Ulrich. We have to find a way. Ulrich's laugh was thin and dry, like old rope. Ulrich, soft, bitter. Whatever you have in mind, boy, do it quick. When the moon comes, there'll be no stopping me. Edward stood and walked to the edge of the narrow shaft he'd used to climb down. Moonlight from the cave mouth showed the vertical face beyond. Sheer rock, jagged and slick. His heart sank. He checked the ropes. Where once a secure line had dangled, there was only frayed end and a clean cut. His hands trembled as he traced the edge with his fingers. Edward, shouting, stunned.
Someone's cut these ropes! They've abandoned me down here! There's no way up!
There's no way to climb that face without a line. Even for me, those cliffs will crumble. I can't get back. I can't get out. Ulrich watched him without surprise. He reached out and put a weathered hand on Edward's shoulder, the touch of someone who had suffered long. Ulrich, low, resigned. You tried your best, boy. I can feel it already. The moon's pull, it's in my bones. When it takes me, I will not be able to stop myself. I will not be able to stop destroying you. The words fell like boulders. Edward's mind raced. Desperation, anger, fear, all at once. Then, from above, something slid through the narrow shaft and slapped the ledge at Edward's feet. A length of rope, fresh and strong, coiled as if tossed. It uncurled, swinging slightly, kissing the lantern light. Edward looked up, heart pounding, at the rope descending through the dark mouth of the cave. Salvation or a new snare? Ulrich's eyes gleamed strangely in the lantern glow as the cave seemed to hold its breath. Chapter 7. The moon takes him. The rope swayed in the storm, taut against the cliff face. Ulrich's gaunt fingers clutched it with surprising strength, his rags clinging to his frame as he ascended. The lantern light faded below, replaced by the fury of the sea spray and the raw voice of the wind. Hand over hand, he climbed, a man resurrected from earth, cursed to live beyond his time. His breath came ragged, but his eyes gleamed with a wildness that had slept too long. At last, he reached the top. The cliff edge rose sharp against the storm, the grass soaked and black beneath his feet. He pulled himself upright, and there, waiting above the world, the full moon broke through the clouds. Its silver light struck him like a blade. Ulrich staggered, groaned, and then arched his back. His body convulsed, rags tearing as coarse black fur burst through pale skin. Fingers snapped, curling into claws. His jaw thrust forward, splitting into a lupine snout, teeth glinting like knives in the moonlight. His eyes glowed molten gold. On the cliff's edge, framed by the raging sea and the eternal moon, Ulrich was no longer man. The Wolfman had returned.
We must stop him!
Part 3, Chapter 1. The Wolfman's Howl. The storm still howled over the cliffs when Alaric Ashbury crested the ridge. His body was no longer that of a man, but the towering, lupine figure the curse had shaped across centuries. Black fur clung to his broad frame, his yellow eyes burned like a molten fire, and his claws gleamed under the storm's flash. Each step toward the manor was deliberate, the weight of vengeance carried in his stride. The grounds of Blackthorn stretched before him, a sprawl of gardens drowned in rain and shadow, beyond which the manor loomed, its windows glowing faintly against the storm. He paused, lifted his head, and loosed a howl. It split the night, deeper, stronger, more terrible than any that had ever shaken the Ashbury line. Inside the manor, the sound carried through every stone, rattling the portraits in their frames, stirring dust from the beams. Lady Margaret froze in the great hall, her cane trembling beneath her grip. Her silver hair caught the firelight as she raised her face toward the storm, her expression stricken with something rare. Fear. Lady Margaret, sharply, to the gathered family. "It is him, Alaric. He comes for us." A second howl rolled in, shaking the windows like a hammer blow. The gathered Ashburys stirred, their eyes flashing, their forms twitching with the beast within. Lady Margaret's voice rose, sharp as steel.
We must stop him! If he reaches us, he will destroy the bloodline!
"We cannot allow it. Defend the manor. Stop him, or the Ashbury name dies tonight." Around her, the family bristled, half men and half wolves, waiting for the storm to deliver their doom to the gates. Chapter 2. The Fall of the Ashburys. The great hall's roar, fire and storm and raw animal breath, became a battlefield in a single, impossible heartbeat. Lady Margaret did not wait. With her cane held like a staff of command, she turned and ran down the corridor, voice cracked and urgent as she called,
Jonas! To me now!
Her heels clattered on the stone as she disappeared into the depths, leaving the pack to the duty she had set them to. The pack responded with low rumbles, a chorus of teeth and claws, eyes reflecting the hearthlight as they readied themselves by the double doors. Then the doors shattered, wood splintered and ricocheted, ancient ironwork tore free. Alaric filled the doorway as if the stone itself had given way to him. He was massive, not simply larger than the others, but older, broader, the original terror given time and wrath. Wet fur dripped from him like shadow, his presence swallowing the light. He stood so still that at first it seemed the storm had paused. Dust fell around him in slow, sickly spirals. For a long beat, he did not look up. The loom of his shoulders, the black of his fur, the way his breath steamed in the cold air, that was the shape of a god. The pack advanced as one, a ripple of snarling bodies. They fanned out, claws ready, eyes burning with the certainty of kin and command. They closed the distance. Time seemed to congeal. The hearths sputter. The stray embers fall. The soft scrape of claws on flagstone. Alaric's head rose like a tide. His eyes snapped open. Molten gold. Incandescent and merciless. In that instant, every course in muscle and feral instinct the pack had ever relied on turned to stone. The first leapt. He crushed it, as one might clap a fly between palms. The second came with a barbaric pounce. He caught it mid-air, twisted, and flung it against the portrait frame. The timber splintered. The creature slumped and did not rise. The third surged, teeth bared. Alaric split it with a single backward sweep that tore body and pride alike. The rest broke. Some tried to rally, then fled, claws scrabbling, breath ragged. Others retreated into the corridors, dragging mangled kin in their wake. Alaric did not give chase in a mad stampede. He moved with cold, precise intent, hunting them down with the patience of a tide that will not be resisted. He stalked through the hall, scent leading him from shadow to shadow, and the manor became a map of fallen blood and torn fabric. The great hall was a ruin of shattered furniture, ripped portraits, and the silence of slaughter. Alaric stood in the center, not triumphant, but inevitable. Rain from his hide hissing as it hit the hearth heat. His chest rose and fell slowly. He had not merely fought, he had executed a sentence. He looked once at the ruined family, and as if tasting the last of a bitter bread, turned and moved deeper into the manor, hunting, cleansing, driven by a code that would not stop until the Ashbury line itself was erased. He believed in the curse with such purity that destruction, even of himself, by eliminating the seed of the line, felt like righteous absolution. Chapter 3. Edward's Return and Alaric's Hunt. The storm did not relent. Its winds clawed at the cliff as Edward's hands, bleeding and raw, clutched the rope. The cave yawned below him, promising a black eternity if he slipped. But he did not slip. Inch by inch he climbed, every muscle trembling with exhaustion, until at last he pulled himself over the lip of the cliff. He collapsed in the wet grass, chest heaving, then turned his head. Across the estate grounds, the manor burned with light and storm fire. From within came a sound that froze his blood, the howl of Alaric, not the cry of a beast, but the voice of doom. Edward staggered to his feet, his only thought clear. Clara. She's in there. I must save her. As he set his jaw and prepared to run, a figure stepped from the shadows. Evelyn, her gown soaked, her eyes lit with something like fury or desire. Evelyn, it was I who threw the rope. If not for me, you would be bones at the bottom of that pit, and Alaric still chained to his eternity. You see? You and I. We can be the new Ashburys. Let them destroy each other. Let Alaric tear down what remains. You and I will begin again. Our bloodline will thrive, strong and unbroken. Edward met her gaze. His lips twitched into a weary smile. Edward, thank you for the rope. His expression hardened. But I can think of nothing worse than being with you. He turned, walking toward the manor with grim purpose. Evelyn's face collapsed, disappointment, curdling into rage as the storm swallowed her silhouette. Inside the manor, horror reigned. Alaric moved room to room, unstoppable. One of the kin, still half in wolf shape, lunged at him. He seized it by the throat and crushed it into the flagstone. The creature shrieked as its body reverted, fur receding, bones snapping back into the frail shape of a man. Man, pleading, broken. No, please. Please. A sickening crunch. Then silence. The wolfman rose, golden eyes aflame, and stalked deeper into the manor. Wherever he went, Whatever he found, he destroyed. Chapter 4. The great doors of Blackthorn Manor hung broken on their hinges, splintered by force. Edward stepped through, breath shallow, the smell of blood and smoke thick in the air. The echo of Alaric's fury still rang in the stones, though for the moment, silence cloaked the hall. He paused, his hands clenching and unclenching. He had nothing. No blade, no weapon, nothing but his will to survive and to find Clara. On the walls, swords of old hung as relics, trophies of ancestors. He stared at them, felt their weight in his mind. Pointless, he thought bitterly. Rusted ornaments. What use against monsters? Then his eyes caught something else. At the far end of the wall, half hidden in shadow, hung a cane. It was old, polished wood, smooth with age, but its head was no mere handle, shaped into the snarling visage of a wolf. The end gleamed in the firelight. Not steel, not iron, silver. Edward's chest tightened, his breath caught. He knew, instinctively, what this was. An heirloom, perhaps the first Ashbury's, perhaps more than that. A weapon. He lunged forward, arm outstretched, and was slammed sideways. The force knocked the air from his lungs. He hit the ground hard, pain lancing his ribs. His eyes flicked up. And there she was, a werewolf, towering above him, fur slick with shadow, eyes burning gold. A female. Evelyn. He knew it, even through the monstrous form. Her snarl curled almost into a smile, as though mocking him. Her clawed hand pressed to his chest, pinning him. She leaned closer, fangs bared, as if to whisper without words. "You should have taken my offer." Edward strained, head twisting. There, the cane, just out of reach, lying across the stone floor. His fingers scraped desperately toward it, nails catching only dust. Evelyn's claw raked across his side, hot blood spilling. She lowered her head, jaws opening wide. With a desperate surge, Edward rolled, pain searing through his body as her fangs struck stone. He stretched, seized the cane, and swung as she leapt. The silver wolf's head struck true, cracking beneath her jaw with a sickening force. Her snarl died in her throat. She collapsed to the ground, her body twisting, shrinking, fur receding. Within moments, Evelyn lay before him once more in human form, pale and still upon the floor. Edward, chest heaving, held the cane aloft. His knuckles were white, but his eyes gleamed with a new fire. Edward, grim, under his breath. Now this is a weapon to destroy the Ashburys. The storm outside roared as if in answer, the silver wolf's head glinting in his hand like the promise of reckoning. Chapter 5. The manor burned with silence. Each step Edward took echoed against the shattered walls, his boots crunching through glass and splintered wood, the smell of smoke and blood thick in the air. The great house that once stood proud was now a tomb of its own history. "Clara!" he shouted, his voice bouncing through corridors that no longer seemed to end. He pushed open door after door. Nothing. Rooms torn apart, portraits slashed, the echoes of violence still alive in the walls. Finally, he reached the far end of the west wing, the door to Clara's chamber. It hung half open, the wind pushing it gently back and forth. Edward burst through, his heart hammering. The bed was overturned, the window cracked open to the storm outside. The ropes that had once bound her lay on the floor. Cut. She was gone. He turned, breath ragged, scanning the empty hallways. Somewhere deep inside the manor, he thought he could still hear movement. Faint footsteps, dragging across the marble. He ran, his coat trailing behind him, calling her name again and again. Outside, beneath the wrath of the storm, Lady Margaret staggered through the open doorway of Blackthorn Manor. Her cane struck the earth in furious rhythm as she disappeared into the trees, a lone silhouette against the flashing sky. Back inside, Jonas moved through the debris like a ghost. His once pristine clothes were torn, his face streaked with ash and blood. In his grasp, he pulled Clara, half conscious, through the rubble-strewn hallway towards the outer courtyard. She fought him weakly, her hands clawing at the floor. "Let me go," she gasped, her voice trembling. Jonas's eyes burned with a mixture of desperation and delusion. "There's nothing left here," he hissed. "Do you hear me? They're all dead. Margaret, the pack, all of them. We're the last. The last of Ashbury. We must escape before he finds us." Clara struggled, glaring up at him through tears. "I'll never go with you." Jonas stopped, his chest heaving, the storm howling around them. "Then you'll die here," he said coldly, "because he's coming for us all." Lightning tore across the sky. For a brief instant, through the rain and chaos, Clara thought she saw a figure at the edge of the courtyard. Tall, dark, massive, a shape against the storm, moving closer. The howl that followed shook the very bones of Blackthorn Manor, and with it came the end.
Alaric! I did what was necessary! I said I had to continue the bloodline. My choice was you. It always was. What was I to do when you jumped from the cliff and left me alone? What was I to do? So I found someone who could do what you could not. It's not too late for us. We can still be together. Forget Jonas and that woman. The bloodline can continue. Think of what we had. We can have it again. Our bloodline will be stronger than any curse, Alaric. If you will not sire the bloodline, I will find someone who will. Is anyone there? Forget Jonas and that woman!
What's in there?
He's here! I can feel him!
One of us needs to live.
I'm not even one of them! Oh! I'm not even a wolf! I didn't even know what a werewolf was before we came here today! Alaric! Why me? I have nothing to do with them! Please, Alaric. I am not one of them. I pose no threat to you. I do not have the same bloodline. Edward, I thought you were dead.
It's over.
Where did you find that? We thought it lost for all time.
Thousands have already walked through the shadows. They've heard the whispers of the forest, felt the breath of the Wolfman on their necks, and witnessed the rise of the curse. They've lived inside the world of the Wolfman Awakens. But the heartbeat of that world was never just the story. It was the music, the haunting score that carried every scream, every transformation, every drop of blood beneath the moon. Now the music is yours. The original Wolfman Awakens soundtrack. The sound of fear, sorrow, and power intertwined. Immerse yourself in the atmosphere that defined the saga. Every note, every echo, every haunting melody, now yours to keep. Listen, feel, remember what it was like to stand in the dark and hear the Wolfman's call. Available for members now inside the Shadow Vault, or as a paid download at ProfessorShadow.com as a MP3 download. Step into the sound of the curse and let it follow you home. Chapter 3. The Relic of the Moon. The rain had eased to a soft, eternal drizzle. Fog clung to the trees like breath frozen in time. And there, standing amidst it all, was Alaric, no longer the beast, but the man. His hair hung in dark, matted strands across a face weathered by centuries. The fire of life burned low in his eyes, but within that dim light was clarity. Perhaps for the first time in 200 years, he reached out a trembling hand towards the silver wolf-headed cane that Edward still held. His voice broke the stillness. "We thought it lost. They told me it was lost forever." He took it gently from Edward's grasp, turning it in the weak light of the moon. The silver caught the air like a fragment of lightning. "This," he said, "is the only thing that can bring me back. The only key that can restore what the moon once stole. When I jumped from the cliff all those years ago, I did it because I believed there was no cure, no end. Only the wolf, only the hunger." He looked down at the cane, the symbol of both salvation and ending, and smiled faintly. "But with this, I never have to be the wolf again." The rain thickened, whispering through the branches as he looked back towards the cliff, a pale outline beyond the fog. "The line is gone. The bloodline is broken. I am all that remains, a relic of a past curse. And I must do what I failed to do all those years ago. This time, with the cane, I can finally rest in peace." He began walking through the fog toward the cliffs. Edward stepped forward, calling after him. "Alaric, why? With that cane, you never have to transform again. You could live. You could start over." Alaric stopped, turning his face toward the wind, the moon glinting off the silver cane. My life ended centuries ago. It was only the curse of Lisanor, that kept me breathing long after I should have turned to dust. There is nothing for me in this world. People speak of immortality as if it were a gift, but it is not. To live without end is to live without urgency. Without limits, there is no reason to act, no reason to feel, no reason to be. He paused, his eyes softening, but the sadness did not fade. The finite gives life its meaning. When you cannot die, you cease to live. Clara stepped forward, her voice fragile. "Alaric, what is the cane?" Alaric looked down at it, the silver glint reflecting the stormlight. "It once belonged to your ancestor," he said quietly. "The first of your line, cursed by the moon. It was forged as both a symbol and a tether, the link between man and beast. It could command the curse, or end it." He raised it once, briefly, as though feeling its weight for the first time in centuries. "And now," he whispered, "it will serve its final purpose." He turned toward the cliff once more. The fog swallowed his outline as thunder rolled across the sea. And for the first time in 200 years, Alaric walked, not as a beast, nor as a cursed man, but as a soul finally free to rest. Chapter 4. The end of the line. The woods were quiet now. The storm had passed, leaving only the soft hiss of rain through the leaves and the slow crawl of fog drifting toward the cliffs. Where once there had been chaos and blood, there was only emptiness, a silence that felt almost sacred. Edward stood beside Clara, his coat heavy with water, his eyes fixed on the faint trail that led to the cliff's edge. The silver glow of the moon bled through the mist, faintly marking the path where Alaric had gone. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Edward finally broke the silence, his voice steady but weary, carrying the weight of all they had endured. "He's gone," Edward said quietly. "And now that the line is broken, there's nothing holding him here anymore. I think he had to destroy everyone, every last one of them, for this moment to come. If even one of the bloodline still lived, he could never have ended it. But he's done what he set out to do. He's killed the Ashbury line, and now he can finally rest." The fog thickened around them, curling like ghosts through the trees. Clara turned slightly toward him, her voice soft and uncertain, almost carried away by the sea breeze. "Edward," she said, cautious, her tone a tremble in question. What if he missed one? What if there's another somewhere? Someone we don't know about?" Edward looked down, his expression unreadable, before exhaling slowly. "Then," he said, "he's doomed himself to eternity, either in the sea or back in that cave. But there isn't another. Gone. All of them. It's over." For a moment, only the distant rumble of waves filled the silence. The air smelled of salt and rain. Edward reached out and gently took Clara's hand. "Come," he said. "Let's go home. Let's leave this nightmare behind us." They began walking through the fog toward the faint glow of dawn breaking beyond the cliffs. Behind them, the forest grew still again, as if holding its breath, listening for a howl that would never come. Two months later, soft light spilled across sterile white walls. The storm, the manor, the cliffs, all of it felt like a fever dream now. Only Clara remained, pale but peaceful, lying beneath the hum of hospital lights. The rhythmic sound of a monitor pulsed softly beside her as the nurse moved the scanner gently across her stomach. The rain that once fell on Blackthorn Manor now whispered against the hospital window. The nurse frowned, leaning closer to the glowing screen. For a moment, she said nothing, her face frozen in quiet disbelief. Then, in a breath that was almost a whisper, she said,
"My goodness, I have never seen this before. It looks like 3 of them."
Clara blinked, her gaze lifting slowly from the screen to the ceiling, and then to the camera. Her eyes were wide, unsure, and in that silence, the echo of Edward's voice returned, faint and distant, as if carried on the wind. "If even one of the bloodline remained, he would never perish." The sound faded, the monitor hummed, and Clara's expression turned from wonder to dread, frozen on the edge of understanding. For a long heartbeat, there is only the hush of the sea, then faint movement, dark water, endless and cold. The surface ripples with a low, rumbling growl that seems to come from beneath the world itself. And in the abyss, 2 golden eyes open. They blink once, then vanish into the dark. The end.